got there? A cardboard box? Yeah, remember that trick? Those poor fools won't know what hit them.
Welcome, Men in Black, Little Green Men, and Big Green Bugs, to episode 432 of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 14th of December 2021, and featuring Dreamland, written by Phil Ford, and starring David Tennant as the Doctor, Georgia Tennant as Cassie Rice, and Tim Hauer as Jimmy Stalking Wolf. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and nobody convinced me to have or not to have another slice of pie, so I had a half a slice. With me are Randy Ronson McCulloch.
It's been one of those days.
Alex Fireheart.
I don't even. This is a trip.
And Mad Matt Winchell.
Quality.
Is job one.
How's everybody's week been?
Oh, I'm doing all right, but my poor bosses are having hell week. I got called in on Monday because my lead manager in my store chipped her tooth and she was tasting blood all day.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
So, and while I'm there, I find out that one of our coworkers who's been there for a couple months, older woman than even me, just up and literally sent a text to our assistant manager and said I quit. Like, effective immediately, even though I have to work tonight. And on top of even that, the programs that we use for our company to, like, manage our schedules and send orders for food, etc., I believe all of them, if not almost all of them, are completely not working all of a sudden and won't connect to anything. Worse yet, we have been told to expect it not to work for like 2 weeks.
That's not unusual. I hate to say it, but it's not unusual.
It's not unusual for everything to fall right on its face. Yeah, so while this is all... So as if it wasn't stressful enough that we suddenly had someone leave, literally the day of them having to come in for work for a couple hours at night, my assistant manager was also struggling with the idea that she suddenly had to put everything to paper only.
Yeah, Murphy's Law is a bitch.
And also this meant that because the programs weren't working, she can't even look up what the accessibility hours for everybody was.
I hate my brain. I hate my brain so much.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Because you know what you said. You used song lyrics there as part of what you did.
Which
I just
part?
suddenly got the it's not unusual to be.
Oh.
My brain just had the mental image of your bosses running back and forth while things are literally on fire. And you're behind the register dancing to that song like Carlton from The Fresh Prince.
Not unusual.
With that same look.
Not unusual for everything to catch on fire. At least the
Yeah,
chicken will taste great.
Mental image, the sheer mental image.
like as far as my week, it definitely shows how busy Saturdays are getting because
Amen to that.
for like the first time in a while, I finally just crashed before like 10 p.m. instead of being up all fucking night. And I slept for like 9 hours. So
I
I was
had night
like,
like
oh,
that too, but
good
I
thing I
forget what night it
did.
was.
Because, like, yeah, it's just, getting closer to Christmas. And I think the state borders are open again now. If they weren't already. Like, if they, like I think they were supposed to be opening on the 17th, but then apparently they got pushed forward. So yeah, it's not been as bad on weekdays, but I worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and it was just like fucking hell. Like I was not expecting it to be as full on Monday. I thought Monday everyone would be a bit slack, but nope. At
Oh
least
yeah.
while I was there, it was full on.
I've been noticing I've been getting a lot of afternoon shifts lately. Been noticing that we've been getting a lot of traffic in the afternoon, in particular, like between 3 and 6, even more so than normal dinner time. First thing I noticed, right just before this happened, is that our gas price went down. The only one in town. Only one in town that went down, and that's even though we have another store in our chain right across town. Not big town either. But ours came down like by almost 20 cents per gallon. And that was the first bit of rush. Then I noticed the next day I was in, oh wait, a whole bunch of these kids have, I'm not going to say which one, but they have a particular musical on all their shirts. It's all of our play kids and musically talented kids getting ready for all the holiday musical stuff they have to do at school for like the remainder of their semester. Oh my word, they are literally all of these kids and their parents are coming in, grabbing stuff, and immediately heading back to school to continue their practice. Holy heck.
Oh, so not like a bus, but one at a time?
Like small groups at a time. Like they're coming in with their parents,
Gotcha.
like their parents are quickly driving them over and then driving them back to school. So they can pick up drinks and maybe a snack or two.
Well, it keeps them from the drugs, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It keeps us on our toes too. Jeez.
I guess depending on who's working register anyway, or who's standing out front of the building.
I'm pretty sure Jay and Silent Bob don't stand out in front of Matt's store.
Be interesting if they did.
Matt just walks in. I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Oh, that's
That would be
already
Dante.
like a couple of days a week. That, like I just said before, that was Monday. Wasn't he supposed to be here today? But the boss needs to go to her dentist today. Here I come to save the day.
Well, at least you can laugh about it.
Yeah, I also I didn't really want to, but like at this point it was looking like, okay, my other phone what is now my old phone has gone to shit and barely works. So now I've got to get a new one. And I basically had to spend most of the money I had put aside from from the pay that I got last week into getting like the cheapest smartphone I could.
Jeez.
And it was just, and even then I had to save money by like essentially taking both of my 10 minutes at once during work like yesterday and ducking into the store that I'd ordered it click and collect from, grabbing it, and then basically by then my 20 minutes was up. I didn't even really get a proper break. So it was like, oh well, fuck.
Right.
But yeah. So now I'm definitely going to have to watch my spending for the next essentially until like this time next week.
Oh, yeah, outside of like digital item shopping, I am actually done for Christmas. I'm waiting for one more piece to come in the mail, and then all the physical gifts I'm giving out are here.
Yeah.
Nice.
Although I might be getting another late one for somebody else if I can get a replacement for me on Christmas Eve.
Mm.
Because it's going to be my one chance to get to see the family. And I will totally gift them something for coming in for me on Christmas Eve.
See, on my news, I finally finished my semester, and I can even tell by looking at my Fitbit app exactly what that means, because the entire time I was working on papers and presentations, even without my alarm, I could not sleep more than 5 hours per night because I was too stressed out. And then the night after I finished my last presentation, I slept 11 hours.
Oh.
Yes.
My brain was like, okay, you are permitted to sleep now. So I still have some last paperwork to do before I can finally say, yes, I can relax. But, today was pretty much me just doing a little bit of paperwork and chilling and not stressing about any deadlines for the first time in a while.
Welcome to No Deadlines.
It'll last for a little under a month.
Trying to think if there's anything else in particular that of interest. Oh, played Sea of Thieves with at least one other person this last week. Co-op, fun! Solo play, there earlier today, bad! I got a mission, and essentially it's like three small missions in one. I got the first two done. I was on the third one, and someone literally just sailed up and started bombarding my ship. And all the stuff that makes me the actual money in the game was still on my ship, so it all sank.
Oh.
Yeah, so like a good 10-20 minutes of hard work all just went to the water. I'm like, fuck this, I'm done today. I might be done solo playing, period, after that. That was extremely infuriating.
I think that's why I stopped playing RuneScape.
RuneScape? How's that tied to RuneScape?
Because every time I had built up resources, I would accidentally wander into a PvP zone because they weren't clearly marked, and so somebody 1,000 levels above me would just come and destroy me and take everything I had.
Oof. On the fun side, have you ever seen what the devs do on RuneScape?
I have not been on it in about 20 years, so no.
They showed a couple years ago that what they do during their conventions shows, the GMs will actually gather up everybody that they can find that's being flagged for botting, in particular for gold selling and stuff. They will all make sure that all these bots load up into a different server. So it's only a server full of only these bots, and the devs will literally god mode in and just obliterate everyone.
God, remember when they used to do that on AO? Because all the bots would hang out in Borealis, and then the devs would show up and basically go bot golfing.
Yeah, the devs will just show up on RuneScape, obliterate everything, and that also means that they get to take all the money they legitimately made.
Anyway,
they're devs. They can literally type a line of code and have all the money, but
nah, that's not fun.
By the way, had kind of a mediocre week. I was having trouble sleeping nights, and eventually it pulled itself into a insomnia cold.
Oh, great.
yeah.
Yeah, where you're so tired you're sick. And then I managed to sleep Monday. All of Monday. I wanted to play Cyberpunk Monday. No!
Sleep the deep sleep.
No, I made lunch. I went back to bed. I woke up. It was 11 at night. I'm like, okay. So much for that idea.
At least you didn't do that today.
Yeah. No, I only got a couple hours today, but I did get a couple hours. Other than that, it's been a non-week. I've been making homemade cheeseburgers.
Oh yeah, actually, I just remembered. I found before I got COVID, I had gotten 2 Classics Masters of the Universe figures. Just happy that I was making money and I could afford these things and get some stuff back that I wanted to have back. And for the last couple of months, I've had no clue where they ran off to. I thought I had them in a box. Turns out I had them somewhere else on my desk, and they were just kind of hidden from view.
Ah,
Time
So
to
now-
clean your desk.
So now they're sitting in front of the Megazord, so they're out in the open. And I got the exact same figures for my nephews. They're getting those for Christmas.
Hmm.
I started out Masters of the Universe, and every time I do it when I'm visiting, those 2 little boys just stop and they look. He-Man. Literally, the first time I did it, the one was coming up with a little car toy, and he just kind of slowly went into a pause as his head turned, and just watched the opening theme play. And it's just like, got him.
Saturday, I actually have to do something.
Hmm.
Well, before that, but I have to drive Barry cross town to get his booster shot.
Oh. For those that don't join us on the other shows, Barry is one of our regulars when we do group stuff
He's
for video
also
games.
my neighbor down the hall.
Mm-hmm.
So he's getting his booster shot before me. He was late getting his normal shot. But I had told him, if he needed to have somebody do something for him in town like that, I'd be willing to do it. So yeah, I'll drive him to get his shot. I'm still talking to my doctor about when they can schedule mine.
Arg.
Anyway, we've spent enough time on this.
Yeah.
yep.
So,
Mm-hmm.
on tonight's show, we've got news, birthdays, geek talk, our review, our final thoughts, and our rating. So, let's go into
I'm
birthdays.
assuming we're not bothering with a historical fact check.
Oh, well, no, I will, but I will. It's going to be a historical bitch because it's a mess. It's
a
dirty
mess, and we'll
little
go
mess.
into that when we get there.
So, starting with the 9th is the birthday of Eric Sayward, story editor from 81 to 86. He turned 77. On the same day is the birthday of Waris Hussein, the original director for Doctor Who. In 1963, he turned 83. The 10th saw the birthday of Anthony Coburn, one of the original writers for Doctor Who. He would have been 94, but he died in 1977 at the age of 49.
Is Coburn the one that came up with the police box?
I think so. I think his estate was the one that was in that little lawsuit.
Mm.
Next on the 11th was the birthday of Ben Browder, who played Isaac in A Town Called Mercy, but is better known for his roles in Farscape and Stargate SG-1, the later seasons. He turned 59. The 12th saw the birthday of Sarah Sutton, who played Nyssa back in 81 to 83. She turned 60. Same day saw the birthday of Bill Nighy, who played Dr. Black in Vincent and the Doctor, but was also Slarta Bartfest in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the movie, and about a dozen other things.
Mm-hmm.
He turned 72.
Yeah, I know him from like all over little random places.
Yeah, me too.
One of those actors.
Yeah, one of those famous bit actors, but his sci-fi geekdom claim to fame is he was Slarta Bartfest.
Look, my name
And
is not
then
important.
the 13th is the birthday of Hamish Wilson, who played Jamie for a couple episodes of The Mind Robber way back in 1967. Technically, he's a companion, so he counts.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been 79, but died in 2020 at the age of 78. I think I remember covering his death.
Yeah, I do recall he was
Probably.
brought up not that long ago.
So, happy birthday, Eric, Warris, Anthony, Ben, Sarah, Bill, and Hamish. Ooh. Moving on. So, the consolidated and 4-panel viewing figures for episode 6 are 4.53 million and 4.6.1 million viewers, respectively. This made Doctor Who the 26th most watched show in the UK last week. As a whole, Series 13 rated an average of 5.13 million viewers. This makes Series 13 the lowest rated series since the 1986, 1987, and 1989 seasons.
Ouch.
Back in the classic days. I'll remind you that 2 of those 3 seasons saw Doctor Who put on hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
The latter one for 16 years. And I believe that is all the main news except for Big Finish. The new releases this week for Big Finish are Warbringer with Jonathan Carley. That is War Doctor Begins. With Carley replacing the John Hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Although no one can really replace John Hurt.
Playing young John Hurt, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why it's War Doctor Begins.
Yeah.
It's like Batman Begins. I'm the War Doctor. No, let's not go there. Also, this week, Torchwood, The Grey Mare, by Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle, starring Gareth David Lloyd. It's so weird how Torchwood is just a whole bunch of individual, stories now. You don't actually see them as a team.
Not very often, at least.
And in Big Finish news, the Big Finish contract for making Doctor Who audio adventures has been extended until March 2030. This means that Big Finish, when that contract expires, will have been making Doctor Who longer than there was a classic series.
Woo!
Yeah.
That's kind of an achievement. Trying to remember if there was anything in particular about this. I mean, we know Big Finish works very closely with the current Doctor Who staff and crew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's till March 31st, by the way. This year, Big Finish was awarded a Guinness World Record for longest running science fiction audio play series in recognition of the Doctor Who range.
Oh, actually, related to the Big Finish staff working closely with modern Doctor Who, I think it was the BBC America tweeted out an official reveal that Nicholas Briggs is coming back for Eve of the Daleks.
No.
As you can expect, the replies were, "Well, it would be a pretty quiet episode if he wasn't."
Well, they could always get someone else to voice Daleks. I mean, if you look back at classic Who, there were I want to say about a dozen actors that voiced Daleks over the years.
At least.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of them were also famous for doing kids' shows with puppets.
But
great. Now I'm going to imagine Frank Oz, the Dalek operator.
hey,
It's not
it could have
easy
happened.
being Chrome.
Now, imagine Kermit in a Dalek voice.
Exterminate,
I'll let you-
annihilate, destroy.
No, with the ringtone modulator going on. And I'll let your mind turn that one a few dozen times. And looks like the rest of this is just a bunch of blah, but yeah, that means that Big Finish will be continuing if you have a favorite Big Finish Doctor Who audio, it will be continuing on as Big Finish will continue to milk those Doctor Who profits.
Well, the little last bit there is Nicholas Briggs. He's just like, yeah, technically getting to the end of this next run into 2030 means it'll be past my time to retire, but I don't care. I don't feel like retiring. I don't think I'll ever retire if I can choose it.
Well, that's the thing. Actors don't have that mandatory retirement date that corporations sometimes enforce on its employees.
Yeah.
You know, the old 65 and you're done.
Yeah. Especially given he mostly is known for doing voices.
Mm-hmm.
So long as he's still, able to do voice work, he can keep going.
He doesn't get like throat cancer.
That and writing specials, which, there's no maximum age as long as, all your faculties are there. Mm-hmm. You can keep writing stories until, you're well, with modern technology, as long as you have hands or a voice.
Yeah, and with specials, it's just even if you're a voice actor and you've lost your marbles, come on, just say what's on the cue card.
Oh. Yeah, well, they sit in a little glass pill.
So yeah, Big Finish will continue for the near future, adding another 9 years to their vast library of Doctor Who audios. Who knows, by the end of this, the BBC may just sell Doctor Who to Big Finish.
I don't know about that one. We'll see.
I definitely would not be surprised that if the show ever stops happening, if Big Finish just keeps going, so long as it's still around.
If, the British government decides to liquidate the BBC, I could see them, just, selling the rights, the IP to Big Finish.
Right.
Yeah.
Better Big Finish than Disney.
Right. Please let Big Finish just take it. Please.
Coming next year in the MCU. No.
Nope.
Although I wouldn't mind seeing Kingdom Hearts 4 feature Doctor Who.
Yeah, well, you see, true, Kingdom Hearts 4 would come out about the same time that gets liquidated. Okay.
Square Enix catching strays.
On that, I think we're done with news. Geek Talk.
So yeah, I finally got around to seeing Halloween 5, and by God, this is a fucking mess.
Is it bad? You're doing that, and my brain is going, "This is Halloween. This is Halloween."
just this whole thing is just bad decision after bad decision. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, Jamie Lloyd in part 4 was a decent kid character. And then in this one, they're like, you know what we're going to do? Make you not talk for like 2/3 of the movie. So we've got a silent protagonist. And it's like, why? And then there's... and by this point, Loomis is basically the ranting, crazy old man. Then it's just like, oh.
Well, to be fair, they throw him into a lot of positions where he ends up looking like a crazy old man, but he's not. He's probably the most sane person there.
Yeah, it's just it's a lot of like... I mean, by this point, I would assume Donald Pleasant's health was kind of going anyway. And
no, by the next one, his health is definitely going.
Yeah. But even then, it's like, God damn it, Donald Pleasance, you have Blofeld. What are you putting up with this shit for?
Because he actually liked playing the character. He got the nuance of it. That's why.
I guess, but it's like, God damn. And like, knowing what was probably going to happen if they'd done a Halloween, like an actual named Halloween 7, that would have been like this. I mean, it's weird because there's that whole thing that's going. Like, I thought by now that mysterious dude walking around who you never see his face anyway, and you don't even see his full outfit. Like, I thought
that's
that
when you only
was
see his feet.
Yeah. Like, for some reason I thought it's like, oh, okay, so we're going to be starting that here. It's like, no, he just kind of breaks Michael out of jail at the end, which...
Well, he just made his first appearance in this one, yes, and then supposedly breaks Michael out of jail. Yeah, and there's so many decisions like that are in this that I'm just like, why? And I haven't thought that outside, because, like, again, you know, the Rob Zombie movies, it's Rob Zombie, whatever. Take it or leave it, whatever. It's Rob Zombie, you know what you're getting. Like, at least you know what you're getting with Rob Zombie, whether you like it or not. But this and Halloween Kills, which Halloween Kills is better than this, oh my God. But that was another Halloween movie where I'm like, the movie preceding it had very smart characters making very smart decisions for the most part. And, like, you know, the odd characters who were just assholes or whatever all died and blah. But this is the same thing where, like, Halloween 4, while not, I wouldn't say it's great, it's damn sight better than this. And it had smart people. Like, again, like, 4 is the one where you have all those friggin' essentially rednecks and pickup trucks being like, you know what? This kid's right. Let's not go after Michael Myers. Let's get the hell out of town. And in this, you have Jamie Lloyd at the end. There's a shootout going on in the cop station. And she's like, instead of running away from the gunshots, I will go towards them. Oh, a dead cop. Well, I guess I better keep going. And I'm like, this character, let alone any human being, would not see a dead cop in a police station and go, you know what? I'm going to keep venturing in just in case there's someone left alive. No, they would run the fuck out.
I mean, a video game protagonist would definitely keep going.
Well, yeah, but that's a video game protagonist. But, like, it was just like, oh my God. Like, again, a small child as well who's been through so much shit. It's like, I just did not buy that she would see a dead cop and go, well, I guess I've got to keep going. And it's just, oh God. And again, this is another one where this is the only Halloween movie, at least Michael Myers one, given that 3 kind of had an ambiguous ending as well. But this has the ending of he's escaped, so he's on the loose rather than having a fake out death. And it's just, that's it. And it's like, no. This is not a franchise that should ever have endings that couldn't just be like, well, that's it, and if we make another one, cool, but otherwise you could end it here. And then there's that fucking girl Tina. Jesus Christ. Like, I thought her character was okay, and then there's a bit where they pull a prank on these comedy cops that should not exist in this movie at all. And I'm like, bitch, you're supposedly someone who gives a shit about Jamie Lloyd, and now you're pulling a fake Michael Myers prank? Fuck you. I hope you die. And she does. So I'm like, yes, thank you.
In fact,
Thank you,
she get run over by a car?
shitty mask Michael.
I'm starting to think I should have taken out a stopwatch.
Oh, I already did.
But
Actually, I
anyway,
think we're
yeah,
6 minutes.
Okay, yeah, but
That's the problem, Matt. You pull out the stopwatch and then you lose track of it.
yeah, like, just this is a god awful movie, and 6 will have to try very hard to surpass the level of shit that this movie is.
I will say it is annoying that Jamie is mute the entire movie, but I will say for a mute character, she still does a really good job as a young actress.
Hmm.
But it is a shame she was kind of wasted for being a mute for most of the movie.
Yeah.
Anywho, so yeah, are you set?
Yep.
Okay, next one is Men in Black International.
Yes, so Men in Black International, I had heard a lot of very negative opinions about this movie, so I went in kind of with my expectations kind of tempered. I already, I didn't rush out to see this in 2019 because I don't know, it didn't have any of the returning cast, and I just didn't know what to expect. So you basically have Chris Hemsworth playing effectively Party Thor, which is funny because this is, before Party Thor was written, as far as I know. But he's basically playing this. He's playing that person at work who, in theory, is so good at their job that they're protected from anything they do, and therefore they spend all their time being late or coming into work drunk or things like that. And there's more to it that you find out throughout the movie, but I don't want to spoil. And then I should have looked up the actor's name, but the one who plays Valkyrie in Thor Ragnarok is the main lead of the movie, the Will Smith figure, and she brings a decent energy to it. But where I think this movie fails as a Men in Black movie, not as a movie, but as a Men in Black movie, is that I don't know if it's the actor, the writer, the director, or some combination of all of the above. She doesn't bring her character does not bring that hip hop attitude, that hip hop inspiration, that Will Smith as an actor and most of his characters bring to it. All the things that come from being played by a rapper. All of those things that really hook you to Agent J as being a character who stands out and is unique. She doesn't have that. She has her own quirks. Quirky is definitely a word to describe her, and she has her own ways of being likable and interesting. But it doesn't really stand up to that same tone, that same mood that you would really be expecting if you've watched the previous 3 Men in Black movies. So it's a decent sci-fi movie. There's basically a sort of a whodunit thing going on. They're looking for basically a spy, and that's pretty interesting. But it does not have the same level of attitude as a Men in Black movie with Will Smith. And there's really nobody in the cast who really stands up to take that place. But again, as a standalone movie, ignoring the Men in Black part of the title, it's all right. It's not like one of my favorite movies of all time, but it's good. I wouldn't be pissed off buying a ticket to it. But it doesn't quite live up to the Men in Black legacy for that reason.
Gotcha. It's a bit meh.
Yeah, between and in that meh to good range without hitting great. I would still probably take, as one of the few people who like Men in Black 2, I would still take Men in Black 2 over this.
I enjoyed Men in Black too. Anywho, so you're done?
Yep.
Okie doke. 3.5 minutes. Totally made up for how long that Halloween runs on this. uh, so I guess it's up to talking about the episode tonight.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Alex with the
And-
summary.
And then I'll do the historical fact check. Or fact
Mhm.
bitch.
In fact, bitches, it's becoming now at this point because
Or
I
will you be
overheard
the
some of that
fact bitch?
conversation. So, are you ready, Alex?
Yep.
All right. Restart and starting in 3, 2, 1, begin.
Okay, we opened to watching a spaceship being shot down over New Mexico in 1947, only to skip ahead to 1958 in a town called Dry Springs, Nevada, where a jankily animated doctor strolls into a diner populated by two more jankily animated people. The woman seemingly running the diner, Cassie Rice, and our only customer at the moment, Jimmy Stalking Wolf. The doctor's very buggy eyes are immediately drawn to an alien doodad on the counter, and he accidentally activates it, randomly summoning a man in black, demanding they hand over the item, which they claim is an ionic fusion bar. The three refuse and make their escape, heading to the Broken K Ranch. There they find a Viperox battle drone, which is blasted to hell by the US military, who then take them back to Area 51 to wipe the memories of the encounter, only for them all to escape before the gas can affect them, leaving the room through the vents. After discovering the Roswell alien in a room they decide to hide in, they evade capture twice and steal the Roswell alien ship, or just a ship like it, only to be shot down. Having survived the crash, they end up in a ghost town called Solitude, where Jimmy gets nabbed by Viperox. We're finally properly introduced to Lord Aslock, Lord Knight of the Imperial Viperox War Horde, who we've previously seen being in cahoots with Colonel Stark, the human in charge of Area 51. The Doctor and Cassie manage to save Jimmy and make a run for it, only to run into the Viperox Queen, giving birth to a bunch of Viperox eggs or whatever, or pods or something. They escape again by collapsing a mine shaft and riding a minecart out, only to be confronted by more men in black, who turn out to be robots working for the Alliance of Shades, that are quickly taken out by some Native American archers, one of which being Jimmy's grandpa, Night Eagle. It turns out Night Eagle has been protecting another alien named Ravesh Mantalax, who refuses to leave without his wife, Saruba Valek, aka the Roswell alien. After some backstory about a war between Ravesh's people and the Viperox, Colonel Stark barges in and captures them all, taking them back to Area 51, where he finally reveals what we've known for most of the story, that he's working with Lord Squeaky Eyes, Aslock. Turns out Ravesh is a scientist who made a weapon to wipe out the Viperox on a universal/genocidal scale. The Doctor tries to steal it and escape, only to be cornered by Stark, though he manages to talk Stark down and win him over, with Lord Aslock retreating to gather his forces. Ravesh appears to be dying, so the Doctor and Saruba go to find something from the remains of her ship to help him, while Jimmy and Cassie retrieve the TARDIS. After finding what they need and avoiding something called Scorpius flies, they manage to reunite again with Jimmy and Cassie, using the TARDIS to get back to Area 51. After healing Ravesh, the Doctor convinces him not to activate the weapon and instead let it be modified, turning it into a sonic-based weapon to force the Viperox, who have extremely sensitive hearing, to flee. The Doctor hands the modified weapon over to Colonel Stark as Ravesh and Saruba leave in Saruba's ship, I guess. And we end on the Doctor saying his goodbyes to Jimmy and Cassie, who they make it clear are going to get together after all this, despite little to no evidence prior that was going to happen. The end.
All right. 3 minutes, 38 seconds.
Boy, we're just gonna turn this into a bitch fest, aren't we? Okay,
Not
historical
everything
fact
was
check.
negative.
All right, so the original opening takes place
Oh.
in 1947. in Roswell, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a desert, that's correct.
Yep.
Crashes area. As it pulls out, it shows a sign for Interstate 25, which wasn't made until 1955.
Wah, wah.
Furthermore, Interstate 25 is well over 100 miles from Roswell. The road that goes through Roswell is U.S. Highway 285 or 380. So, bad check there. It then moves to the town of Dry Spring, which is never given a location. Is it still supposed to be close to Roswell?
I mean, like, the only stuff I could find seemed to imply that it was in Nevada.
Yeah, which would mean that it's somewhere in Groom Lake. Well, there is no Dry Spring there. But
Hmm.
historically speaking, there's enough dry blank or blank springs in Nevada that it's not exactly a non-fitting name. But there's several other issues as well. When they encounter Colonel Stark's office, was it Colonel Stark or General?
Colonel Stark.
I think everyone in the building is a colonel.
That was something else I was going to point out. They show the U.S. flag with 50 stars. This wouldn't be until 1960 that the 50-star flag came out. At that point, there was only 48 states. So, another error there. A brief scene with them driving shows them driving on the left side of the road. And another one shows a sign with authorized spelled the British way. So there's a million types of did not do the research here.
They also salute with their left hands instead of their right, so they're
In
not
one
U.S.
scene,
military.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Makes you wonder if a few scenes were transposed left to right. But that would not explain the bird logos or the 50-star flag.
Mm-hmm.
Or the interstate being so close to where it shouldn't have been. I haven't seen any other blatant anachronisms. Most of it looks pretty good. Although it's the 1950s, so I don't know how much local Nevada rednecks would look at an Indian people hanging around with decent white folks. You know, civil rights would not be for another decade.
Yeah, hard to say. None of us are really around the area.
Some areas are fine with it, and other areas it would be an issue.
Yeah,
It's hard to tell. I mean, this isn't the Deep South.
Yeah,
That would be an issue in the Deep South.
for sure.
But there are areas of the West where that's a problem, and other areas where it's no problem at all. Mind you, the racial distinction out there tends to be more disposed against Mexicans, which are the large minority, but get the most flack. But again, I don't know Nevada as much as I do California, so.
Yeah, none of us can say for sure on first hand, especially for that time. But yeah, we'll take it as it is.
Okay, so let's talk about what we liked about this episode. And this is using the term loosely, as this was not broadcast during regular hours.
Hmm.
This was kind of a bizarre special that originally showed up as a Red Button event and then was later reshown on BBC Two and BBC HD. But anyway, let's talk what we liked about it. And Alex, you're first.
I guess the general concept of shit going down, and just generally the Doctor with all the kind of fuck ups there are, even just the idea of the Doctor going to Area 51 is kind of fun. The execution you can argue the quality of, but the actual concept itself is very interesting and kind of amazing that the show hadn't done that prior to then and hasn't done it since.
I mean, frickin' DS9 did it.
Well, was this the first time they went to the States without being underground?
No. This was after Daleks in Manhattan.
Yeah.
True. Okay.
This was at least a couple years after Dogs in Manhattan. So.
Yeah.
So technically, there was a really quick cameo way back in the early seasons of Doctor Who, and then there was actually the full-on Dogs in Manhattan serial.
When were they in the States in the early days? Was it part of the chase or something?
It was part of the chase.
The chase. They were in the Empire State Building, I think.
Yep.
Which is funny because Daleks in Manhattan, they're building the Empire State Building.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes back together.
It's all Daleks in the end.
Anyway, Bill?
So mine is kind of similar to what Alex said. I like how they managed to use all of the 50s UFO tropes without trying to fool the audience with them. So often you'll see, this little green alien is actually something else in disguise. Like Men in Black, where there's actually the little alien inside the head or whatever. But no, it's actually a little green alien, and it still works. The Men in Black are robots, but they're still not actually super mechs that are folded down into a tiny human form or something. No, they're actually a human-sized thing, and it still kind of works. So I liked how they managed to kind of play it straight and be effective with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the fact that you had to call them the Men in Black and the fact that you just reviewed Men in Black International just makes me think of another way they could have crossed over in the wrong ways. Hey, Kay, I tried flashy finging him. Why didn't it work?
I don't know. Maybe he's a particularly well-trained, mentally capable species.
Would have been a little too early for Agent J, but Kay might.
Yeah, I know.
Kay might have been there, yeah.
At least Zed.
For sure, yeah.
Just the thought of it.
Right.
Okay. Was there anything more, Bill, or?
Nope, that's about it for that.
Matt?
There are other parts of this episode that we'll get to probably in the next part here, but I will argue for the fact that despite its simplicity, if you will, because it's technically aimed at kids story from what I saw, this is not a bad story per se, and it is a very interesting story. I just wish there were other elements to this that would have helped boost the story and kept up the quality overall, but as far as just stripping it down to the story, I liked what they were doing here, and it was a very nice, although be it simple, story. So that's
Okay.
generally overall what I really liked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I liked about it. I had something. I've lost it. Give me a moment.
I wrote
Um,
mine down this time because I know how often I forget my thoughts when we go on a tangent.
Where did my little notebook go, anyways? I had a little notepad here around here somewhere. I don't know where it ran off to.
uh,
Hmm?
I think what I just basically liked was it was the one of the few times prior to the BBC America co-process that we did see Doctor Who in America.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
Um, Paying more attention to the fact that yes, we have fans out elsewhere other than Britain.
right. If only we had animators elsewhere other than Britain.
If we at least had animators willing to do the research.
When they step outside
Okay,
Britain. But yeah.
so let's talk about what we didn't like about the episode, and who's going to go for the low-hanging fruit first.
Um, Looks like Alex just had to step away for a second. So I came up with a second because I figured I would not get the low hanging fruit. So I'll say my second, because that's what I wrote down anyway. And that's I mentioned the Men in Black figures, the aliens. What are they called? The League of Shadows or something?
Something like
Oh,
that.
no, that's Ra's al Ghul. Whatever. Well, in the Nolan
shadows.
movies anyway. Besides the point, those figures were kind of underdeveloped in the story. Anything important or interesting about them, we just know because of the Doctor's exposition. So when it's revealed that they're actually working for someone else, it doesn't really hit as hard as if we had actually learned anything about them on our own. So I think that was a missed opportunity there.
All right.
And Alex
bad.
is back.
Yep.
Any
So I
overall
can-
thing that you didn't like? Not the low hanging
Alright.
fruit.
No, well, are you going to go for the low-hanging fruit?
Most likely. Because that overwhelms everything else, so I'm probably just gonna have to go for it. So yeah.
All right, so time to tag team in.
God, this like the thing that came to mind as I was watching this, the joke was like, this story has a face for radio. Like, fuck me. This animation is horrible. Like, when it starts, I'm like, okay, not too bad, but we're only looking at inanimate objects. And then we start to see characters, and as soon as we see Cassie and Jimmy, I'm like, oh no. And then the Doctor walks in and moves his mouth, and I'm like, oh God, what the fuck? This is horrific. What the Jesus Christ. Anytime anyone opens their mouth, it looks like they've been injected with all of the Botox ever. It's just very rigid. And it's like, fuck. And their hands are too big and like all this other stuff. And it's just like, why didn't they just do the same thing for like Infinite Quest? That doesn't necessarily look great, but it's flat, like 2D flash animation. That looks better than this. Jesus.
Infinite Quest, by the way, was done by Cosgrove Hall.
Yeah, like bloody hell. That looks better than this. It looks cheap, but at least it's 2D, so it doesn't look as bad.
Even worse than the mouths, and something that wouldn't have happened in 2D. I don't know if any of us caught this, but apparently Aslak is seen clipping through his shell from time to time.
Oh yes.
Oh, I didn't notice
and
that.
there's at least one instance when they have guns pointed at them that a guy's thumb is going into his gun.
One of the issues I noticed very frequently, not only do all the humans have ape arms when you see below their waistline, but also in particular when they were in the vault and you have that pulled back shot and you're watching the Doctor and the alien walking, you realize not only does the walking not look very effective for walking, but he doesn't even immediately start moving as he walks. He starts to just a second or two later start to slowly slide across the ground
Yeah.
as the walking animation is happening.
And there's like a scene where like they're supposed to be running away, and it looks like they're running like extremely slowly, and it's like they should be moving faster than that. What the fuck?
So the Metal Gear box scene might be the best animated moving sequence.
Quite possibly.
Pretty much. And it's funny because like the animation for everything that isn't human is at least okay, because even though it looks cheap, because they're not trying to make humans, it doesn't
Doesn't come
bother
off
me
as
as much.
as weird. Yeah.
It just looks like cheap PS2 stuff. Like, whereas
Oh,
the
no,
There
no,
were
no, no,
PS1
no,
games that were better animated than this.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is still a step above Final Fantasy VII's original release, where everything looked like freaking,
Well, we're not saying that
polygons.
we're not saying that they look at this as polygons, but we're saying that the people who actually animated these things to move
Yeah.
did not learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stiff.
I would
It's
say
as
that
stiff
the,
as those
Stiff as
polygons.
the
Yeah.
design itself is a few steps above the actual the animation of those
Yeah.
designs.
Yeah, it's one of those things of if you just look at the stills in the title card for the podcast, it's like, wow, that actually looks a lot better than when it's actually moving. Although there are some frames.
It looks like it's really decent, but then there are some frames where it's just like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean there are some frames like when Cassie first looks in the TARDIS where it's like, ugh. God. Oh, Jesus Christ. But yeah, that is wow. Like it's one of those things of like, yeah, Doctor Who is cheap, but fuck. Even by Doctor Who standards, this is terrible.
It's just horrible. It's bleh.
Like I will never say a bad thing about the classic Who animations again. That's how bad this is.
Be happy you're getting 2D flash animation.
Yeah.
Look what we can do with 3D. Nightmare fuel.
Yeah, the animation was stiff, and yeah, the Cosgrove Hall stuff was better. Even the Scream of the Shalka was better.
Oh yeah, I remember Scream. I never got to finish watching that, but I remember Scream.
And that was, early to mid Flash animation.
Yeah. That was like 2004, 2005?
Like generally pre-New Who.
Yeah, so it was like 2004,
at the end of
2003 then.
RTD's run. Yeah. Like, yeah, as opposed to 2009 where it's like, oh.
Yeah, nowadays you can use flash animation, and as long as you got a good engine and good animators on it, you can do hell of a lot with it.
Yeah. And I guarantee you the reason, like, this is probably also the reason that they never did this again. Because they probably, like, the backlash to this of how bad it looked and shit was probably like, okay, 2D from now on.
This is probably why the company went under. They couldn't compete. I mean, if this had come out 15 years earlier, so early 90s.
Yeah.
It would have meshed in a bit more.
Right, yeah. Like if this is coming out alongside shows like Reboot, then okay.
Yeah.
But not in 2009.
Yeah, 2009, this is unacceptable. Not when you had the Clone Wars starting at the same time.
Right.
So that also benefited from being stylized. Whereas this is, I don't even know if it's not necessarily trying to be realistic, but it's not also entirely cartoony either.
It's its own weird sort of almost cell shaded style, but it's not quite meshing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They tried for a look, they failed.
Yeah.
Okay, So I guess we're at Matt.
Anything else generally overall that I disliked? Trying to think. Well, I guess one thing I didn't mention is the really bland backgrounds. I mean, when they're inside the military base and stuff, they're fine. They have plenty to work with. But whenever they're outside, it is just very short horizons that go off into nothing.
I mean, that's kind of realistic, though.
I think they roll a bit more than that, even out there. And also the fact that there should be also very minimal, but there should be some plant life. Maybe even some more rocks occasionally. I mean, it's just flat.
Yeah, it's very barren.
Okay,
landscape
I'll buy the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And I mean, it is a desert, but there are technically a few tiny handfuls of things that still live out there as plant life.
Yeah, and like animal life and
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
any life beyond the humans and aliens we see.
there is. I mean, I have been out there, and actually, that is beautiful country.
Yeah, and this
To-
looks
to
really
that part of the
stark and
state?
Even in this part of the state, there's just the rock formations on the mesas
Mm-hmm.
Hmm,
are just unbelievably colored and beautiful, and
okay.
there are portions where it's flat, but not New
Mhm.
Mexico. That's
Well, it's
generally
supposed to
up in
be in
Utah.
Nevada.
Even Nevada, lower Nevada, generally is okay. It's not as colorful as New Mexico,
Mhm.
but it's generally more so than other locations. This would be southern Nevada, and you
Okay.
can usually see the Sierra Nevadas on your western vision.
Huh.
You've
Yeah,
got
like
mountains.
I was gonna say, you should be able to like see rolling hills and maybe even a mountain or two somewhere.
You should be able to
Not,
see a mountain.
it's
maybe-
flat, but not flat.
Maybe too much of my point of reference is live action TV shows that are pretending to be set there but aren't actually there.
Mhm.
Quite
People that don't
possibly.
do the research.
You may be too used to
You-
the salt flats.
You can stand 20 miles outside of Las Vegas, look west, and you'll see flatland until you see mountains on the horizon. And those mountains are the Sierra Nevadas.
Mm-hmm.
You look east, you can see further distant mountains that are the Rockies.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a ways to go, but you can see them because they're so fucking tall.
It's so flippin' huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Now,
why they're damn near their own time zone.
in there, you've got, you still got some. You don't have constant grass covering, but you've got scrub.
Mm-hmm.
You've got tumbleweeds, and you've got the occasional tree. Those dry weather trees. I forget what they're called.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You can see those in the desert. And there are the occasional wildlife. Things like prairie dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck prairie dogs.
You have them, by the way. Yeah, they are little
I
pets.
drove through Colorado once. There's this one stretch of interstate going into Colorado that you can just look, and the road is almost like you can't see road through the roadkill prairie dogs.
Jesus.
God.
Oh,
Yeah.
Little menaces.
Oh yeah.
And I'm
they
sure
breed
those little
like
things
rabbits,
baking
too.
the sun on pavement just gotta smell just wonderful.
Oh yeah. You roll your windows closed and turn on the air condition and turn on the little recycle air button.
Right.
Because smelling 16 miles of travel BO is better than that prairie dog smell.
Well, I was also thinking 16 hours of farts is better than smelling that roadkill.
Of stale beer farts, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a repugnant smell.
But yeah, my point still stands that a lot of their outdoor shots were really empty.
They really went for
This
some
being Nevada should have had a lot more detail.
They really went for some minimalist animation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So to Rand, anything else other than the low hanging?
yeah, I had something. I've lost
Just
it
give you a
again.
moment.
'Cause
All right.
before you went off on your rant, I had it and then it disappeared because I started thinking about what you were thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Mm.
Yes. If you were going to try to design an alien spaceship hiding in Area 51, don't crib your notes from Independence Day.
Yeah. Now that you
Seriously.
mentioned it earlier, I am thinking about it, and yes, it very much is the Independence Day UFO.
And the fact that the doctor's trying to steer, it's like, oh, they got the controls backwards. Up is down, right is left. Okay, got it. What was the problem with the freaking one in Independence Day? You see him take the instruction stick, or the instructions for the stick, and turn it upside down. It's, my God, seriously, people.
Well, I actually had the toy from Independence Day for the UFO. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All they did was they turned the metal parts from silver to red.
Yeah, it's just they turned it that rust brown color.
And they still left the
Instead of
glowy blue parts on it, so shrug.
Yeah, it's they bit the crafts directly from Independence Day. I was just like, seriously? Seriously?
I mean, it's not exactly the only thing they cribbed from other sources.
Yes, I know, but that's there. But usually it's a redress.
This does
Yeah.
not look
This
like
was
much of a redress. The most they did to this UFO is they took off the head wing. It's still almost the exact same shape and design. Actually, now that I think of it, wasn't the UFO that the humans have originally from Area 51, or was it just the one that Will Smith happened to knock out? Also, a lot of Will Smith mentions tonight.
yeah. Well, what are you talking about? Men in Black and Independence Day.
Yep.
Those are basically two Will Smith vehicles.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe this episode was an attempt to homage to Will Smith?
No, because there's no Will Smith character.
True. Never mind.
No one's doing the Carlton dance.
Yeah. Plus, he wasn't an alien.
Oh God, I
so-
even started the ball. Jesus.
Yes, yes, you
It all
did.
goes full circle. And it comes out here.
So no, it just felt like they didn't redress it enough. It looked like freaking outright.
We need to find out
thievery.
who designed that thing, because you did some major corner cutting, didn't you, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, there are animation studios that have gotten reputations over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Filmation had a reputation for stilted animation. Turns out they were actually rotoscoping their animation, and they reused those animations between their various shows.
Yeah, it happens.
DIC got the nickname "Do It Cheaply" for its cheaply made animation in the 1980s and 90s. But this takes the taco for cheap animation.
What might be relevant in terms of who designed the ship? This episode aired a month after Prisoner of the Jadoon, which was written by the same writer, and from what we were discussing, I think before the podcast, possibly after it started, seems like it uses the exact same design. So it may have been designed by someone on the Doctor Who staff or the Sarah Jane Adventure staff for that, and then translated into PS1 graphics for this.
But even so, it's still somebody still cribbed the design from Independence Day.
Right.
I don't know if it was somebody on Sarah Jane Adventures or this, but it's more obvious in this.
Yeah.
They told some PA to go out and find out what a UFO looks like,
Yep.
and
They found this spaceship from the
they-
90s and went,
yeah,
that should be fine.
They accidentally printed out one from Independence Day instead of an actual source.
Hmm.
I mean, if it had been the generic flying saucer, the generic, like, almost War of the Worlds-esque flying saucer, I would have treated
War
it
of the
with more
Worlds,
respect.
or The Day the Earth Stood Still, or any of those other...
Mhm.
I would have treated it with more respect because that's an homage.
Yeah, that's an obvious
Right.
homage, and that's
Independence
just
Day hasn't been around long enough to be an homage yet.
toss
No,
of the
this is
hat in.
thievery.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so favorite scenes.
So it's up to Alex.
Yep.
Yep.
Hmm. God.
Don't
I
take
feel like I
mine.
did have one.
We're gonna. This might be an argument because I only have one. The rest of this can go to hell. So if one of you steals it, I'm gonna pass.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Honestly, I'm probably gonna have to pass because I feel like I had one, but I'm just completely blanking. So yeah, I'll pass.
All right,
so
Bill.
I'm going to go with the I forget the exact quote, but it's basically, why does this keep happening? Where he's trying to interrogate the leader of the robot Men in Black, and it gets killed by the hidden native group. And he's like, "Oh, I was going to get all the information from him. This keeps happening to me today."
Second time
Uh,
today.
And it just, it's we were talking last week even about how the doctor interrogates people when they're supposed to be being interrogated, and that happens. That the doctor tries that twice in this story and is foiled by his allies both times.
Yeah, it's the doctor having an off day.
No.
Okay. So, Matt.
I enjoyed the 4Kids version of Aliens. Literally, we find the eggs and it's like, I know exactly where this episode's going. And sure enough, there's a queen.
Okay, you liked that.
It was amusing. It was they were taking it their own way, but it's very obvious on the face where they're coming from, and they're homaging it a bit.
Hmm.
That's actually how you do an homage, not that
especially
spaceship.
since Alien had already been referenced in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, and that's actually going to take me to mine because that was my favorite scene. Is them escaping from the gas. It's like, where'd you learn to do that? I learned it from Houdini. The good thing about the 1950s is they've never seen Die Hard, or Alien, or Die Hard 2,
Or Die
or
Hard
Alien,
3.
or
Or
Die Hard
Aliens.
3, yes.
or Aliens. So many movies.
Thankfully, he didn't say Alien 3 because
I would bring up Alien 3, but it's not really worth mentioning.
no,
Although I will
it's
say that
not.
one of those prisoners was really quite handsome. That's how you make a reference. Did everyone just die?
Okay.
No.
No,
Was that the end of it?
I think so. That was the end of mine. Yeah, I just like that
Okay.
that reference because it was David Tennant at his best.
Mhm.
But so what's the least favorite scene?
Oh, Alex.
And no, I hadn't stopped. I had paused for a drink.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Don't choose them all at once.
Honestly, yeah, I'm just gonna go with, funnily enough, my least favorite was actually Randy's favorite, because to me, if it had just been, yes, the good thing about people in 1958, they haven't seen Die Hard. If that had been it, I would have been fine. But then he goes on about, oh, an alien and aliens in Die Hard 2 and 3. It's like, okay, we get it. You could have just done like maybe Die Hard and Alien and then just stopped. But
Nah.
the fact that he keeps bringing up other movies, I'm just like, nah.
No, the fact that his brain keeps going down that rabbit hole is actually a tendentism too. So
It's a
not too
very
much of a
doctory
stretch.
thing to do.
I can understand it bothers some people, but it doesn't bother me. It seems to fit the character at the time.
I guess
Okay.
that's to me.
Yep, so Bill.
Yeah, that's to you.
All right. So it took me a while to think of this because I almost thought I was going to have to pass. But I'm going to go with when they're standing in front of the floating Scorpius fly brain, talking for like 5 minutes about what it is. And then it's not until they decide to start running that it decides to chase after them.
Yeah.
Unless its vision is activated by motion, there's no reason for that. It was chasing after them before they knew it was there, so why did it just stop and stare at them for a while?
Yeah, that's the thing of like, I mean, I don't trust the animation to have looked all that great, but they could have just had them like, the doctor immediately like, oh, yeah, we've got to run like right now, and as they're running, explain it.
You see, that would make things even worse because then they would have to talk while also running. And you can't do two animations at once.
Yeah. I mean, they could have cheated by just showing the backs of their heads.
That or you just could have done side shot so you didn't have to show the feet. Or actually, you could have just shown the feet and then you wouldn't have to worry about the mouths.
True.
All right, so we up to Matt.
Yep.
I believe so. Least favorite scene. I have to go a few minutes before that because as they're going through that vault, like they keep trying to do these nice big shots to show how big and impressive this place is, but instead what I keep noticing is every time they go back to the doctor and the alien, you see their really stiff, really awkward movements, and then they start to slowly slide across the floor while the movements had already started. Just like, oof. I remember when I was learning animation and we were actually literally being taught before this came out how not to make it look like that. Believe me, it's a pain in the ass, but we were being taught that better than they were showing here. It's like, yikes.
Yeah.
Even the pre-built-in walking animation in 3DFX is better than what this thing is. So anyways, that's my big one. Round.
All right, so my least favorite scene is the very end where you got the two, where the doctor hints that the two could work together and then they hold hands. It's the most awkward hand-holding scene since Leela and Andred.
Yeah.
Could I quote Mr. Sides Theater? What is that? A symbol for their love? Well, it's not framed very well.
Yeah, it's just, I'm like, you don't see it at all. First of all, this should have been one of my least favorite overall things. The guy that's acting as him is just absolute vocal wood.
Yeah. I understand he's
Yeah, 'cause
trying to
he's
pull
trying
some
to
sort of
affect an
accent, but it's
accent.
making the voice actor sound really bad.
It's the problem they
Yeah.
always have when they try to include a Native American character. And that's
Mm.
actually a lot of American problems too. They just make him
Mhm.
sound like this. Think of Assassin's Creed 3.
Yeah, I thought they were intentionally going for that stereotype.
It is a very big stereotype, but it doesn't translate well to film because
Mhm.
it makes your character sound like a freaking block of wood.
Mm.
I mean, it's the stoic American, the stoic Native American that has been a stereotype in American film and TV for decades.
Right.
And
It
it's
doesn't.
not a true stereotype.
Yeah. And doesn't he really fit Jimmy anyway because of his look?
Yeah.
Like anyway, like he looks like a biker dude for all the clothes he's wearing. So it's like,
Mhm.
why the fuck does he sound so stoic?
Hmm.
It's like a 50s greaser or something. Like, why is he?
Hmm. Yeah, he should be acting more like a punk.
Yeah.
More like a 50s punk. Not like a modern punk, a 50s punk.
Mm.
Which, like you said, a greaser. But instead, they give him the stoic Native American voice.
They
And
tried to
it's
make him
just,
sound stoic. Instead, he sounds like a plank of wood.
yeah. It just makes him a completely non-charismatic character.
Yeah.
And
I
he
just
doesn't
have to
show...
think he's basically Coco from Pocahontas.
He
The guy that Pocahontas
basically...
is supposed to get married to.
Yeah, him and Georgia Moffat's character show absolutely no charisma with each other throughout the
Yeah.
entire run of this thing.
Yeah.
And suddenly
I mean,
we're to think
it's clear that they're like kind of friends at the beginning, but that's about it.
That's about it, yeah.
not even really friends. I mean, he's just, having a coffee at her diner
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah,
when
like
the
there's
doctor
no,
walks in.
yeah, like there's no like dialogue between them before the doctor walks in either.
So at best, they're acquaintances.
Yeah.
As much they know each other about as much as you know about your local barista at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like
If
a
you go
good
to
point.
if you go to Starbucks daily, you might know their name.
Yeah. Like the drastic point of difference that comes to mind is, even though it's a bit rushed that like Joe Grant and like the guy that she ends up with at the end of the Green Death like get married at the end, or at least are planning to get married by the end of it, at least they had scenes together
Mhm.
where they were getting to know each other better. So it's like it's not completely out of nowhere, even though again marriage is a bit of a rush. It's still like, okay, at least this makes a bit more sense than a lot of other Doctor Who examples.
Well, then again, look
at
at
the
Joe
time,
Grant as a character. She's in a
the-
rush everywhere.
the only valid excuse to leave the TARDIS is to get married.
I thought the other excuse was that you're tired of being the secondary scientist when you're the main hired scientist.
She was never in the TARDIS.
That's a reason for leaving unit. So, was there anything else?
I think we covered most of our bases.
Okay.
I think
I mean,
we
like,
have.
I think the
Final thoughts?
only,
So, yep, final
yeah,
thoughts. Alex.
like, yeah, I think the only like alternative that I thought of after the fact was, oh yeah, the bit where he says, like, take me to your leader, Alon Z, is like, okay, that's a bit of a forced inclusion of the Alon Z line. But maybe it's just that the animation makes it seem forced, whereas if it was
Right.
actually David Tennant, it probably wouldn't seem as forced because he'd be able to inflect.
If they had
something into it.
rotoscoped it, it might have looked natural.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, like as I said before, and this will be my sticking point, is just that this animation has the face for radio. This story is like, it's funny because it's like this story isn't like utter shit by any stretch, but it also just isn't helped. Like, if this had better animation, it would be like, well, it wasn't great, but oh well. But it's just like the animation bogs us down so much that it weighs so heavily on my opinion. Because I'm just like, like I could not. I like when I rewatched this, there were scenes that I forgot about because I just got so distracted by other things as I was watching it the first time because I didn't want to look at the animation. And again, like I said it before we started, like something that I wanted to do that I didn't get the chance was to watch this through 3 times, and the third time technically not even watch it and just treat it like an audio and see if that would make the story any better, even though there is some stuff where it's like it only really works visually, but like to see if it would work better just making up my own visuals in my head. But I didn't get the chance to. But it really does feel like if they wanted to salvage this in some way, that they could basically tweak it, give it to Big Finish, and it would probably come out better.
Very easily.
Or have a better animation studio reanimate
Well, right,
it.
true.
Well,
Like,
I think
well,
Big
yeah,
Finish
just
owns a
get-
better animation studio now.
Probably. Like, even just get the people that are doing like the classic Who animated stuff now, just get them to do it. Like, have a go at it, and it would probably be a lot better. Again, it would still look cheap-ish, but at least it would look a better sort of cheap than this is. Like, I'm not surprised at all. Like, that being said, the story is so unmemorable as well, even though it's not bad. It's not memorable.
It's very obviously a made for kids episode.
Yeah,
plot-wise.
to the point that I can see why this has fallen by the wayside in the grander scheme of Doctor Who stuff. Because it's like, yeah, it's why they have to usually package it with other shit just to make money off it these days. Because otherwise, yeah, like I know I did not watch this at all until we were covering it because I had no interest. And now I can see why. Because again, it's like, this is something that people should only really check out if they are morbidly curious. But otherwise, you can absolutely skip this. Yeah, that's about it for me.
Bill?
So I watched this once years ago, probably when it was available on the Doctor Who website. And it really just slipped out of my mind, probably just because it was so weird and so I had no idea what to expect. To the point where up until last week, I thought this was another story with Martha. And it wasn't until Rand listed the cast that I was like, wait a second. And I went back and looked. I actually probably would have recommended we switch this week and next week if I had remembered that. But, you know, hindsight's 2020. I said, yeah, this is a story
I was a
where...
little curious about that, to be honest.
This is a story where if it were live action or if it were animated very differently, it could be, you know, a 4.0, possibly even a 4.5, although that might be stretching it. The writing is decent. There's some complaints about the writing, but they're not big ones. The acting is all right for what it is, but it's kind of obscured by, you know, the elephant in the room, which is this is one of those where you can't ignore the visual issues because they just permeate every scene. Sometimes the drama is completely taken out of the scene. It's not great. As I mentioned at least once, you know, I had PS1 games that, you know, were kind of, you know, lost their drama by how they were animated that were still more fluidly animated than this, which is a shame because the designs are halfway decent. You know, it could have been something Clone Wars style if there was, you know, a bit more into making the animation fluid. So that really drags it down more than visual issues would if they were minor.
Can I actually say that there are PS1 games that have better drama buildup and tension than this.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's for sure.
Final Fantasy IX. Let's just start with that one.
I
Final
mean,
Fantasy VII's cutscenes.
Final Fantasy VII's cutscenes are better
Mm.
animated for this by far. Yeah.
mhm.
But
Yeah.
it's more the case that the animation is just lazy and stilted.
Right.
Mm.
Mm.
But yeah, that's about it. All for my final thoughts.
All right, Matt.
All right. I'm okay with the story. The story is pretty decent. It's obviously simplified down for kids. I can deal with that. It's not Searching Adventures quality quite, but it's like this was their base. I assume this was basically a test to see if they wanted to keep doing stuff like this. The story was not the issue. The acting a little odd here or there, but maybe that was the animation that undercut it as odd. But by far, yes, it is the animation is the major issue here. Not even the character designs. I could withstand some of these character designs just fine. You'd have to maybe shoot around some of the minor issues in the character designs, but the major flaw is the animation was so noobish, so cheaply done, so undermining of everything on screen that it just things are clipping through things. Animations look like they were started filming before they were intended to be on screen. Stuff like that. It just really basic stuff that even I learned in my year and a half in animation classes in MATC that these guys should have well and way known better not to do some of these things and how not to do them.
Anything else?
That's about it.
All right, so this, writing-wise, is a mediocre episode by Phil Ford. Would have been kind of a well, that happened kind of thing. Except for that it's just horribly lazily animated. I know why this became an animated episode, is that this was recorded while David Tennant was recovering from back surgery.
Oh.
But then they hand it over to like the cheapest animation studio in the world, who does no research and just cobbles something together, probably because they were also given really short notice. But because of that, you get the most stilted, single-dimensional 90s-esque animation that just makes this look garbage. They choose to record a stoic voice character, and with no actual way of expressing his emotions, because the animation's so stilted, he'll never show any emotions visually, and he'll never show any emotions audibly. It makes him a null charismatic character. The other characters come across okay. The voice acting's good, animation's terrible, averages them out. But between that, the bad backgrounds, the bad research, and stealing visual clues from other shows, this is kind of a garbage episode to me. All right, let's rate this abomination.
Ooh.
Alex, you're first.
I'm trying to think how, I think the story itself is barely good enough that while I'm going low for me, it's not as low as I could potentially go. So I'm going to be slightly nice and give it a 2.5.
Bill.
Wish you didn't preface it that way, because I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to weight the good and the bad, and I'm like, okay, I feel it's more middle of the road forgettable than bad, like actively disliking it. So it probably does it. I'm sure it's going to come off as being too lenient, but I end up falling on a 3.0.
Yeah, that's being lenient, Matt.
2.5 butthole eyes on an alien's face out of 5.
All right. Wow, I'm going to be the harsh one here
Oh,
because you see, for me, the writing gives it a 3, the animation gives it a 1, so that averages out to a 2.
I know you were going to be the harsh one from the minute we started the review, so that tracks.
I figured Thomas was because he was the one that was saying he was going to be roasting it in the review.
so me and Alex are the ones that are correct.
In this case, yes, because with everything that
A
averages
3
out
and
to
a 2 equals out our 2.5s.
Yep. Which will put this really fucking low in our rankings. It comes in at number 382 out of 409 things reviewed. It is on par with Black Orchid. And we hated Black Orchid. Oh, and the Santaran Experiment. It is better than Time Flight and the King's Daemons,
Oof.
and not as good as Daleks in Manhattan / Evolution of the Daleks and the Caretaker. So there it is, 382 out of 409. That's all we have to say about Dreamland.
So, Dreamland, how do you feel about sleeping with the mole people tonight?
All right, so please
Well,
let
it
us
is
know.
about an underground facility.
So please let us know in the comments. What do you think? If you've seen Dreamland, please let us know what do you think about it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to get our exports every week, or follow us on Twitch to get our streams every Tuesday night.
All right, so next week we will do another of these Doctor Who original animated adventures with the Infinite Quest, which is not written by the right people on my script here. God damn it. Give me a second. I knew I forgot something.
Of course, I was going to click the previous button on TARDIS, but it says previous, The Waters of Mars, even though this is not
Yep,
a
written
live
by
action
Alan
special.
Barnes, and starring David Tennant as the Doctor and Freema Agyeman as Martha Jones. So we'll see you next week.
No, seriously, the giant beetles have buttholes for eyes.